So guys, SAN Agbokoba has reacted to some of the recent developments in the National Assembly. For instance, a bill to rotate the presidency was proposed by the Deputy Speaker so that every region in the country will be carried along. But that bill was struck out. That bill was rejected. Also, there is another bill being proposed so that there will be punishment for anybody who does not come out to vote during election, meaning Nigerians will be forced to vote anytime there is an election. I'm going to allow you to take a look at how Mr. Agbokoba has reacted to all these.
The House of Representatives has rejected a bill proposing rotation of the presidency among Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu. The bill was voted down during Tuesday's plenary session. Leading the debate, Kalu argued that the bill will foster inclusivity and ensure all regions contribute to the nation's leadership. However, opposition emerged from lawmakers like Sani Madaki, Deputy Minority Leader and member of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, who maintained that zoning should be managed by political parties rather than legislated. After the debate, Kalu called for a voice vote, but the majority of the lawmakers voted against the bill, despite attempts to reconsider the motion individually, as suggested by Francis Wire, chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business. The bill remained rejected. The House also voted down other bills, including one sponsored by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas to strip the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, of its power to register and regulate political parties. So joining us to discuss this idea of a rotational presidency and also registration of new political parties and compelling Nigerians to vote is Olita Agbokoba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Good to see you again, sir. It's been a while seeing you, but I'm very happy to see you, you know. Je suis très content, like they say in French. Should we sacrifice inclusivity for competence? Or should we sacrifice competence for inclusivity?
But I think I have a general idea of what you're saying. So permit me to give a small contextual and conceptual background about where we are and the problem. I think that the basic problem is that the Western democratic liberal model has failed Nigeria. As you know, we've worked on a new constitutional process for 25 years, since 2000, and nothing. I think it's time to rethink and reimagine our democratic experience. It's not working. It's not inclusive, it's divisive, it's full of fighting, it's a winner-take-all. People want power, nobody wants to be in the opposition. You see the opposition people all jumping into the APC. The process is not working. So personally, I would advocate something homegrown, autochthonous, what I call consociational democracy, where we build our institutional democracy around our institutions. I am a very strong person for finding a role for traditional rulers. King Charles is the constitutional monarch of the United Kingdom, and he has a role to play. He's going to Canada. He's playing a role in the trade process. He's got a good deal with Trump. So I think our constitutional process should include the traditional rulers. Quite in what way, I'm not sure. We ought to stop this thing about winner take all. That's the problem. I will recommend the Belgian model, where the Walloons and the Flemings are different people, but they've come to an arrangement whereby there's inclusion. So whatever process we want to adopt, the first point would be to discard the Western democratic liberal model. It's not working. The second point I want to make is to also discard the Western liberal economic model. It's something that enables only a few to extract. If return on capital exceeds return on development, why would anybody want to develop Nigeria? So these are the two broad points I think we need to take into account in reimagining a new Nigerian experiment. Otherwise, I started at 29. I keep saying this. Now I'm 72. So you, Rufai, I know you're a young man. 20 years down the line, you'll be saying the same thing. So if something hasn't worked for all this time, is it not time we think through a process? My final point would be let us stop this nonsense about saying that the APC wants Nigeria to be a one-party state. It's the opposition. It's the opposition. If a guy comes to my wife and takes her away, who would I blame? The guy or my wife? So I don't blame the APC. They want to win power. And the reason why this is so is because it's a winner-take-all. Nigeria is not at the point where we can afford this winner-take-all process. We must include. How that will be done is beyond my own competence. But I think that those are the building blocks for a new Nigeria.
Okay, since you're speaking on inclusivity, I would like to get your thoughts on this issue of rotational presidency, because the conversation is that the bill has been rejected that proposes that the presidency should rotate around all of the geopolitical zones. And won't this be a solution to cure some of the marginalization that we see many groups speak of? Other people are saying that, well, this will institutionalize mediocrity. Where do you stand when it comes to the rotational presidency?
It's part of the element of constitutional democracy. It happens in Belgium. So in Belgium, there are two distinct ethnic and linguistic groups, the Walloons and the Flemings. And they share power, they rotate it. So if you do that here, and you include people, I know that I'm from the Southeast, and that I have a process, a voice in what plays out in the executive system, then I don't feel as if I'm a loser. But right now, this winner-take-all thing, it's doing us severe damage. So inclusivity needs to be properly constitutionalized. You recall that the late Chief Dr. Ekweme was the one who first proposed the 6 regions. I proposed 8, creating a middle belt, and so that's 7, and creating something out of the South-South, 8. How that will work is not for me to say on this short program, but that's the building block for Nigeria. And the reason is clear, the evidence is clear. Why not moving forward? Don't you see Trump roaming around the Middle East, roaming around the Arabian Peninsula? And I say, but these are also Muslims. How are they so advanced? They don't have democracy. China doesn't have democracy. Yet they're advanced. Then we pretend that we have Western liberal democracy imposed on us, and we're going nowhere. So it's time to reimagine the process on the grounds that the patient has been in the hospital and is not recovering. So let's jettison this nonsense about the Western model, which they have imposed. Let's jettison it. Even the Western democratic model is failing in America, with Trump causing problems everywhere. So we need to build on something that is local to us, that works. And what is local to us that works is inclusion. If everybody feels that they are part of the lunch, I'm not talking about corrupt lunch, I'm part of the power sharing, then we can move forward and we can develop Nigeria in the way that, I was so ashamed to see small countries like Qatar, UAE, Abu Dhabi, Trump romping around the whole place, feeling good. And here we are in a rotten country with all the resources we have. We've got to put our best foot forward, and we're not doing that now under this Western liberal democratic process.
Okay, looking at the state of the democracy in Nigeria today, I think one component that we can also talk about is this concept of voting and voter apathy. That's why in the House of Representatives they're looking at making voting mandatory. What are your thoughts on there? Because I think that if we're looking at the reasons why people may be hesitant to vote, it could speak to your point about inclusivity or the lack thereof, or a democratic system that doesn't actually work. So what are your thoughts on making voting mandatory? Do you think that's something that Nigeria should be focusing on right now?
Absolutely not. How can you make voting mandatory? Voting will be a process that will animate Nigerians if they see something, if there's a return. So you go and make it mandatory, pass a law. Nobody's going to come out. You make voting attractive by promising people dividends of democracy. That's what makes people come out. But if it's so apathetic, people have this idea that every 4 years we have formal democracy and people are asked to vote and they don't come out because they don't get anything. They don't get anything. Look at me here at 72. I haven't got a dime, no advantage from the government of Nigeria. Why would I want to vote? Why should I want to vote? If it comes to the elections coming in Anambra in November, then I'll be keen to live here to go to Anambra to vote. Why? What do I get? So there's the apathy caused by a failure of development, by a failure of governance, by a complete breakdown. That's what's causing it.
2 questions, sir. Number 1, is it with these morally bankrupt politicians and traditional rulers you think we can get it right? Politicians that you know will manipulate whatever system of rotation that is there, where elections are challenged in the first place, and afterwards, once the politicians emerge, we'll now decide and say it's the will of God and keep deceiving ourselves when we should call a spade a spade. People will steal elections in this country. They'll tell you to tell them it's the will of God. And is it with traditional rulers, with scandals everywhere? I'm not saying they've not been an agent of good in some instances, but we see the scandal and the flamboyance of traditional rulers. Is this the cocktail we want?
No, I agree, Rufai. We're in a very bad way at a point of despair. But you see, we've got to do it. We have to do a diagnosis. There's no one right answer. But the diagnosis that I see right now is that Western liberal democracy is failing us. That's the first conceptual issue to put on the table. Can we continue with this winner-take-all, first-past-the-post process? On the evidence, I would say no. Then the question is, if that is agreed, and I think it's agreed, if you ask Nigerians, they would say, well, I'm feeling the effect of democracy. The question would then be, what do? We have to do something. So what I'm proposing is to say this model has failed. Do we have to look into other models? And I've told you that I've looked into the model of cooperative federalism. I've looked at constitutional democracy. I've looked at autochthonous democracy. And I don't pretend that all will be well simply by dropping the Western model and adapting this. But the question is, why do we have such levels of corruption? It's because of what we find in the book, Why Nations Fail. If you have an extractive process whereby very few take everything, the others are going to be disgruntled. And how are these very few able to do so? By corrupting voters, by corrupting the traditional rulers. But if we are all in the table, in the game, if we're all holding cards, then it will remove the incentive to be corrupt. That's just a theory I have. But one thing I'm very clear about, the Western liberal model does not work. I mean, not that I'm proposing that Nigeria should cease to be a democratic country. But why is China working? Is it a democracy? Why is it working? Why are people happy with them? In spite of the fact that they also have their problems.
Are people happy?
Why is the Arabian Peninsula working?
Are people happy?
Do they have democracy?
Are people happy?
Who?
In China.
There. Where?
In China? In the Middle East? Are people happy?
China?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Generally, people are happier in China than Nigeria. Absolutely.
Well, sir, I mean,
there are human rights problems in China, obviously.
if we look at the laws in China, they're not allowed to express their displeasure. So they have to say they're happy. Very quickly, we just have 30 seconds. If I appreciate your commentary and your critique of the Western liberal democracy. My question is, if we are to say, let's look at something that's more traditionally African in nature. Traditional African hierarchy was more about inheritance. It was more about bloodline. There was no real consideration for meritocracy. Are you saying that merit is something that can be sacrificed to please the larger population of people and make them feel a part of the project? Very quickly, sir.
I'm simply saying that don't forget that Nigeria is an extremely young country and that Nigeria was essentially clobbered together by the West. and the influence of our traditional rulers still remain very, very valid. To the extent to which we want to involve them in the process will be a subject of debate. I'm not suggesting that they will come in and become, the executive. But if other countries have done it effectively in the Western world, the United Kingdom has had a monarch, 9 different ruling dynasties for 1,000 years. And it has worked in the context of the Westminster system. So as we create something, as we begin to formulate something, what that something will be, I cannot tell. But my point is the Western model has not worked. And should we continue with the Western model? I'm sure all of you in the studio will agree that things are not working. So the issue would simply be, do we just simply, every 4 years, we have these elections and we all complain, now APC is being accused, everybody is jumping into APC. What are the causes of these problems? That's the issue that should conceptually challenge us. And I've given one broad answer, which needs to be further interrogated.
Thank you so much.
And that broad answer is the failure of the Western liberal process. And it is time to reimagine a new process. Agbokoba is not the only person who will do that. So I'm merely contributing my own thoughts. It will be refined and defined. So your question about the role of traditional rulers may, at the end of the day, not be relevant.
Thank you so much. In the life of every nation, the tinkering process will continue.
So guys, honestly, this would have been a game changer for this country if that bill was passed, because many regions in this country, it's not only the south, it's not only the southeast, there are other regions in the north, like the northeast, that will tell you, oh, we've not had the presidency before, and all that. Although the north is different because they gain more of the benefits when it comes to, the government, the federal government. The north is always, getting more benefits than any other region in this country. Assuming there's anything that has to do with humanitarian ministry, sharing money, it's mostly the north. I mean, they benefit a lot. Okay, that of the presidency, if this bill has scaled through, I think it would have just resolved this question of who becomes the president and who doesn't become the president. When it's rotational, then every region will go to their own, to go like discuss and say, okay, who do we put forward? Every region. If it's the 6 geopolitical zones, the southeast will say, okay, it's our turn. Let's provide a person to go for us. If it is the southwest, then the southwest will come together and decide for who to represent them. If it is the northwest will do the same. If it is, and just like that, the presidency will get to everybody and nobody will say, we were marginalized or we are being marginalized. So I think this bill was supposed to have, close some gaps, some vacuums that have been created by all this marginalization of a thing by powers that be. It would have really solved a whole lot of, tribal problems that we have today in Nigeria. But like you can see, as it stands now, people are now saying that they don't want it. Those of them in the National Assembly, they don't want it. They just want, so that, honestly, it means that the crisis in Nigeria is going to continue. The marginalization we are seeing is going to continue, because some of them in the north believe that, oh, an Igbo man don't deserve to be the presidency. Now, the Yoruba man want to be there to second tenure, and then we'll give it back to the north. The north will be there 2 tenures, and we'll send it back to the south. And maybe when it comes to the south again, Yoruba man again will want to. So it makes no sense. And when people begin to say the marginalization is much, oh yeah, let's secede, divide Nigeria, let's go our way, they see you as a problem of the country. But you can't sit down and like do some simple mathematics on how to carry everybody along and make people feel belong. That's just what is lacking in the people in government. That is why they easily struck out the bill, especially those of them in the north would not want it, because they believe the north is born to rule and born to enjoy, not to do the work. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell. Please give this video a like so that YouTube can recommend it to others, and drop your thoughts